You should have told me you were in a wheelchair. He took one look at my wheelchair and walked out, just like that. I wanted to disappear until I felt a gaze burning through the silence. The man at the next table, the one everyone whispered was a Mafia boss, stood up, walked toward me, and said 5 words that changed everything. Before we continue, tell us where in the world you're watching from. We love knowing how far Sharon's story travels. Hit that subscribe button and like this video. Your support helps us in creating more amazing stories, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's jump right into the story. The wine glass trembled in my hand as I watched Ryan push back his chair. Across from me, my blind date, the man my best friend swore was different and ready for something real, was already reaching for his wallet like he was paying off a debt. This should cover your water, Ryan said, his voice low enough that nearby tables had to strain to hear, but loud enough that they did. Sorry, Sharon. I can't do this. The words hung in the candlelit air like smoke. My crimson dress, the one I'd spent 40 minutes choosing, suddenly felt like a costume. I'd arrived at Bellissimo an hour early, checked my reflection 4 times in the restroom mirror, and rehearsed opening lines that now dissolved on my tongue. I don't understand, I managed, my voice barely audible over the soft Italian music drifting from the speakers. My photos were recent. I didn't hide anything from you. Ryan adjusted his tie, glancing toward the exit like it was a finish line. Look, it's not personal. I just have a certain lifestyle. The gym, hiking, running. I need someone who can keep up, you know? You're just not. He trailed off, but his eyes finished the sentence as they flicked to my wheelchair. Too broken. Too much work. Too difficult to love. Stop. The voice came from behind me, deep, rough like gravel scraped across concrete, and carrying an edge that made Ryan freeze mid-gesture. I turned. The man in black stood up from his corner table with slow, deliberate grace, the kind of movement that made you think of storms gathering on a calm horizon. He was tall, intimidating, with tattoos crawling up his neck and disappearing beneath his collar. A gold chain glinted against his dark shirt. His hands, scarred and strong, rested calmly at his sides, but there was nothing calm about the way he looked at Ryan. I'm sorry, Ryan said, his confidence cracking. Is this your problem? It is now, the stranger said quietly, stepping closer. There was something in his posture, protective, immovable, that made other diners turn to watch. You've said enough. Leave. Ryan laughed, but it came out strangled. Oh, what, your boyfriend? That's perfect. Guess I dodged a bullet. The stranger didn't react. Instead, he walked past Ryan like he was invisible, pulled out the chair across from me, and sat down. His eyes met mine, dark brown meeting tearful green, and something passed between us. Recognition, maybe. Or understanding. May I? He asked softly, his voice stripped of the steel he'd used on Ryan. I nodded, too shocked to speak, tears still streaming down my cheeks. The stranger turned back to Ryan, who stood frozen. She's beautiful, he said simply. You're just too small to see it. Now leave before I forget that violence is bad for business. The mention of business seemed to confuse Ryan further. He looked between us, muttered something under his breath, and stormed out, leaving a cloud of expensive cologne and cheaper character behind. The restaurant fell into thick silence. I could feel eyes on us, some pitying, some curious. My face burned with humiliation. I wanted to disappear, to will myself out into the night and pretend this never happened. But my hands felt frozen on my armrests. I'm sorry, I whispered. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, he interrupted gently. He reached for a napkin from the table and held it out to me. No one deserves to be spoken to that way. Especially not someone brave enough to show up and try again. I took the napkin, dabbing at my mascara-streaked face. I must look like a disaster. You look like someone who had the misfortune of meeting a coward, he said. His voice softened further. I'm Eric. Eric Harvey. Sharon. I managed. Sharon Mitchell. Sharon. He repeated my name like he was testing its weight. Can I ask you something? When's the last time you let yourself enjoy a meal without worrying what someone else thought? The question caught me off guard. I ordered soup earlier, but you were too nervous to eat it. First date nerves. Something flickered across his face, a memory perhaps, though I couldn't read it. How about we start over? Pretend the last 20 minutes didn't happen. Hi, I'm Eric, and I was just about to order the best osso buco in the city. Would you join me? No pressure. No expectations. Just two people who refuse to let an idiot ruin a perfectly good evening. I looked at this stranger who defended me, who was now offering kindness instead of pity. His eyes held something I hadn't seen in years, someone looking at me, not through me or around me. Why? I asked. Why would you do this for someone you don't know? Eric was quiet for a moment, his fingers drumming lightly on the white tablecloth. When he spoke, his voice carried weight I didn't yet understand. Because your brother once saved my life, he said finally. And the least I can do is make sure his sister knows she's not alone. The room tilted. My breath caught. You knew Daniel? But before Eric could answer, the question hung between us like a bridge I wasn't sure I was ready to cross, leading me from the wreckage of tonight into a past I thought I'd buried and a future I never imagined possible. The question hung in the air between us. You knew Daniel? Eric's expression shifted, something raw and honest passing across his features before he composed himself. I did, he said quietly. Not well, but well enough to owe him everything. I wanted to press further, to demand answers about my brother who'd been gone 3 years, but the waiter appeared with perfect timing, setting down 2 plates of osso buco that smelled like comfort and forgiveness. Compliments of the house, Mr. Harvey, the waiter said with a respectful nod. And for the lady, may your evening improve from here. Eric waited until we were alone again, then gestured to my plate. Eat first. Questions after. Deal? I should have insisted. Should have demanded to know how this tattooed stranger knew Daniel, why he was here, what he wanted. But something about his steady presence made me trust him in a way I hadn't trusted anyone since the accident. So I ate. And God, it was incredible. The meat fell off the bone, the risotto was creamy perfection, and for the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about my wheelchair or my limitations, or the pitying looks I'd grown to expect. I was just present. Good. Eric asked, a small smile playing at the corner of his mouth. Life-changing, I admitted, and was surprised to find myself smiling back. Wait until you try the panna cotta. The chef here makes it with lavender. Sounds strange. Tastes like heaven. We fell into conversation then, easy and unexpected. Eric told me about the restaurant, how he'd discovered it years ago during a difficult time, how the owner's wife had reminded him of his grandmother. I told him about my physical therapy sessions, carefully editing out the darker moments, the days I didn't want to leave bed. But Eric saw through it. He always seemed to see through things. You don't have to do that, he said gently, setting down his fork. Pretend it's easier than it is. Not with me. I looked at him, really looked at him. The tattoos that covered his hands weren't random. They were carefully placed, meaningful. A compass on his left wrist. Roman numerals on his knuckles that could have been a date or a code. The gold chain wasn't flashy. It was worn, like something kept for sentimental reasons. Why aren't you afraid of me? I asked suddenly. Most people look at the wheelchair first. They see broken before they see me. Eric leaned forward, his dark eyes holding mine. I spent most of my life being looked at like I was dangerous before anyone knew my name. I know what it's like to have people see a version of you that isn't real, to be judged by the surface. He paused. You're not broken, Sharon. You're just someone who survived something that would have destroyed most people. That's not weakness. That's fucking strength. The profanity should have jarred me, but instead it felt honest. Real. And before I could stop myself, I laughed. A genuine, surprised laugh that bubbled up from somewhere I'd forgotten existed. Eric's expression softened. There it is. There's what? The smile that doesn't have walls around it. My cheeks flushed, and I looked down at my half-finished plate. I don't smile much anymore. Maybe you just haven't had a good enough reason. He signaled the waiter, who appeared instantly. "Check, please." "I can pay for my own," I started, but Eric held up a hand. "A woman like you should never dine alone because of someone else's weakness," he said firmly. "And she sure as hell shouldn't have to pay for it either."
"This is on me."
Non-negotiable. The check came and disappeared in seconds. Eric's card returned with the kind of speed that suggested he was a regular, or something more. Outside, the sky had opened up. Rain poured down in sheets, turning the city lights into watercolor smears. I stared at it from under the restaurant's awning, realizing I'd have to call a rideshare and wait, soaked and pathetic. "Let me drive you home," Eric said, appearing beside me with an umbrella I hadn't seen him grab. "You don't have to, Sharon." His voice was gentle but firm. "It's raining. It's late. And I'm not leaving you here. Please." A black car pulled up to the curb, sleek, expensive, with tinted windows that reflected the rain. A man stepped out from the driver's side, built like he lifted cars for fun, wearing a dark suit despite the weather. "Marcus will help you," Eric said, but he was already moving, opening the umbrella and positioning himself to shield me as Marcus approached. Together, they made it seamless. Marcus lifted me from my wheelchair with practiced ease, respectful, professional, and settled me into the back seat while Eric folded my chair and placed it in the trunk. It should have felt humiliating, being carried like a child. Instead, it felt careful, considered. Eric slid in beside me, water dripping from his hair onto his collar. The car smelled like leather and rain and something else, something masculine and cedar-like that I couldn't place. As Marcus pulled into traffic, I noticed it. Just a flash as he adjusted his jacket, the unmistakable outline of a gun holstered under his left arm. My breath caught. Eric noticed immediately. "Marcus is my driver," he said quietly. "He's also my security. I don't go anywhere without protection." "Protection from what?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer wouldn't be simple. Eric was quiet for a moment, watching the rain streak across the window. "From the kind of men who don't believe in second chances. From the consequences of choices I made a long time ago."
He turned to look at me.
"I'm not a good man, Sharon, but I'm trying to be better than I was." The admission should have scared me. Should have made me demand Marcus stop the car. Instead, I felt something else. Curiosity, recognition, maybe even understanding. "My brother," I said softly. "How did he save you?" Eric's jaw tightened. 3 years ago, there was a raid. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong assumptions. Daniel found me bleeding out in an alley after his colleagues left. He could have walked away. Should have, probably. Instead, he called an ambulance, stayed until they arrived, and never put my name in his report. Eric's voice dropped lower. "He told me I reminded him of someone, his sister," he said. "Someone who'd survived something impossible and came out stronger. He said if you could fight for your life, so could I." Tears burned my eyes. That sounded like Daniel. Always seeing the best in people, always believing in second chances. "He died 3 years ago," I whispered. "Car accident responding to a call." "I know," Eric said. "I was at his funeral. Back of the church. I couldn't let him go without paying my respects." The car slowed to a stop in front of my building. Rain hammered the roof, filling the silence between us. "Your brother once saved my life," Eric said, turning to face me fully. "The least I can do is make sure his sister is safe." "Safe from what?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. Eric's dark eyes held mine, and in them I saw something that made my heart race. Not fear, but the weight of secrets too heavy to carry alone. "From ever feeling worthless again," he said quietly. "From men like the one tonight. From anyone who tries to make you believe you're anything less than extraordinary." Marcus opened my door, umbrella ready. But I didn't move. "I don't understand," I said to Eric. "Why do you care?" He smiled then, sad, small, honest. "Because your brother taught me that sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest. And walking away from you tonight? That would have been the easiest thing in the world. But Daniel didn't raise a coward for a sister, and he didn't save a coward's life. He reached out, squeezed my hand once, brief, warm. Good night, Sharon. I'll be seeing you. It wasn't a question. It was a promise. And as Marcus carried me through the rain to my building, my wheelchair following behind, I realized I wanted him to keep it. 3 days passed, and I couldn't stop thinking about him. Eric Harvey. The name rolled through my mind like a prayer I didn't know I was learning. I replayed every moment, his voice cutting through my humiliation, the way he looked at me like I was whole, that final squeeze of my hand before Marcus carried me into the rain. I'll be seeing you. But he hadn't called, hadn't texted, and I told myself I was relieved. On Thursday morning, someone knocked on my apartment door. I wheeled over, expecting my neighbor Mrs. Chun with another casserole she'd insist I needed. Instead, I found a delivery man holding the most stunning bouquet I'd ever seen. White lilies, dozens of them, arranged with dark green leaves and tied with a black silk ribbon. Sharon Mitchell, he asked. I nodded, speechless. He handed them over with a small card tucked between the stems and disappeared down the hallway. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. For the woman who reminded me of humanity. No phone number. No return address. Just those 10 words that made my chest ache in ways I couldn't name. I set the lilies on my kitchen table where morning light caught them, turning the white petals translucent. They were beautiful, haunting, like something you'd bring to a funeral or a first love. I couldn't decide which. That afternoon at Mercy General's Physical Therapy Center, I was going through my exercises with Danielle, my therapist, when I overheard them. 2 men in the waiting area, voices low but not quite low enough. One wore an expensive suit, the other had the thick build of someone who spent his life in construction or something harder. Can't believe he showed his face at Bellissimo, the suited one was saying. Everyone knows that's neutral territory. Harvey doesn't follow rules anymore, the other responded. Not since he became the ghost boss of the East District. Man moves like smoke, here 1 minute, gone the next. Half the city's scared of him, the other half owes him. My hands froze on the parallel bars. Ghost boss. East District. Heard he's gone soft though, the suited man continued. My cousin works at the restaurant. Said Harvey defended some woman in a wheelchair. Sat with her like they were old friends. Not like him at all. Maybe the ghost finally found a reason to be human again. They laughed, but the sound made my stomach twist. Danielle noticed my distraction. Sharon? You okay? You look pale. I'm fine, I lied, forcing myself to focus on the next exercise. But my mind was miles away, circling one word. Ghost. That night I saw the car. Black. Tinted windows. Parked across from my building under the broken streetlight that the city kept promising to fix. It was almost midnight, and I'd wheeled to my window out of habit. Insomnia had been my companion since the accident. The car sat there like a predator waiting. Patient. Still. I watched it for 20 minutes before I found the card again, turned it over, and saw what I'd missed before, a phone number written in pencil on the back, so faint I nearly overlooked it. My finger hovered over the digits. Part of me wanted to pretend I'd never seen it, never heard those men at therapy, never felt the way my pulse quickened when I thought of dark eyes and careful hands. But I'd never been good at pretending. I dialed. He answered on the first ring. Sharon. Not a question.
He knew it was me.
There's a car outside my building, I said, skipping past hello. Black sedan. Tinted windows. Is it yours? Silence stretched between us, long enough that I could hear my own heartbeat. Yes, Eric finally said.
Why?
My voice came out sharper than intended. Are you having me followed? Protected, he corrected gently. There's a difference. Eric. People notice you now, Sharon. His tone shifted, becoming something harder, more serious. After that night at the restaurant, after I sat with you, defended you, word travels. In my world, everything means something. And being seen with me? That painted a target I won't let anyone aim at you. My breath caught. What kind of target? The kind that uses innocent people to send messages. He paused, and I heard something in the background, traffic maybe, or voices. I had someone watch over you. For your safety. I don't want anyone thinking they can use you to get to me. The admission should have terrified me. Should have made me hang up and call the police. Instead, something else stirred. A realization that felt both dangerous and inevitable. You're protecting me, I whispered. Yes. Not because you feel guilty about Daniel. Another pause, heavier than the first.
No.
Not anymore. The air in my apartment felt too thin. I pressed my forehead against the cool window glass, watching the car that watched me back. Who are you really, Eric Harvey? Someone who's made a lot of wrong choices, he said quietly. Someone who's trying to make one right choice. You don't have to understand it. You don't even have to accept it. But I'm not walking away from this, Sharon. From you. I didn't ask you to protect me. I know.
His voice softened.
But your brother asked me to be better. And keeping you safe? That's the best I've got. The line went quiet except for our breathing, his steady, mine shaken. The car stays, Eric said. It wasn't a question. The car stays, I agreed, surprising myself. After we hung up, I sat by the window for another hour, watching the black sedan that wouldn't leave. Watching the ghost who'd decided I was worth haunting. That night, I dreamed of Daniel. We were in his old patrol car, rain hammering the windshield like the night of the accident. But this time, he was smiling, turning to look at me with those gentle eyes that always saw too much. You're scared, he said. Of course I'm scared. Daniel, he's dangerous? My brother laughed. So are you, Shar. You survived something that should have killed you. You wake up every day and choose to live despite the pain. That's the most dangerous thing in the world, refusing to break. He's a criminal. He's a man trying to be better than his worst decisions. Daniel reached over, squeezed my hand the way Eric had. Trust the one who didn't look away, little sister. Everyone else saw your wheelchair. He saw you. I woke with tears on my cheeks and Daniel's words echoing in my chest. Outside my window, the black car remained. A ghost watching over another ghost. And for the first time since the accident, I didn't feel alone in the dark. Eric showed up at my door on Sunday morning. No warning. No text. Just 3 solid knocks that pulled me from sleep and the remnants of another dream about Daniel. I wheeled to the door in my pajamas, hair unbrushed, eyes still heavy with sleep. Through the peephole, I saw him, hands in his pockets, head bowed, looking like a man preparing for execution. Sharon, he said when I opened the door. We need to talk. Something in his voice made my stomach drop. This wasn't the steady, protective Eric from the restaurant or the phone. This was someone carrying weight too heavy to hide anymore. Come in, I heard myself say. He stepped inside, and the apartment suddenly felt smaller. He didn't sit, just stood in my living room, looking at the white lilies on my table, already starting to wilt at the edges, like they held answers he couldn't find. I haven't been honest with you, Eric began, his voice rough. About your accident. The world tilted.
What?
He turned to face me, and I saw it then. The guilt carved into every line of his face, the shadows under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept in days. 3 years ago, your brother was investigating my organization. He was close, too close, to exposing connections that would have brought down half the East District's infrastructure. Eric's hands clenched into fists at his sides. My associates wanted to send him a message. A warning to back off. My breath stopped.
No.
They didn't mean to hit your car, he continued, each word landing like a hammer. They were supposed to run Daniel off the road on his way to the station. But the intelligence was wrong. The timing was off. And you, his voice cracked. You were in the wrong place at the wrong time. The room spun. I gripped my wheelchair's armrests so hard my knuckles went white. The car that hit you wasn't an accident, Sharon. It was collateral damage in a war you didn't even know existed.
No. No. No.
The words screamed through my head, but I couldn't make my mouth work. 3 years. 3 years of physical therapy, of learning to live with phantom pain, of believing I was cursed by random chance. 3 years of guilt for being on that road, for running that errand, for existing in the wrong moment. And it was never random at all. Say something, Eric whispered. Get out. The words came out strangled, barely human. Sharon. Get out. My voice broke on a sob I'd been holding back since the moment he started talking. You knew. You've known this whole time, and you sat with me. You sent me flowers. You. I didn't know it was you, Eric said desperately, stepping forward. Not until that night at the restaurant. Not until you said your name, and I remembered Daniel talking about his sister Sharon. The sister in the car crash. The sister who… He stopped, swallowed hard. When I saw you there, I knew. And I've been carrying that weight every second since. Tears streamed down my face, hot and angry and broken. Is that why you helped me?
Guilt.
At first, he admitted, and the honesty cut deeper than any lie could have. But not anymore. Sharon, you have to believe. I don't have to believe anything. I was shaking now, my whole body trembling with rage and grief, and a pain so deep it felt like drowning. My life ended that day, Eric. Everything I was, everything I wanted to be, gone. Because of you. Because of your world, your choices, your… I know. His voice was barely a whisper. You weren't supposed to get hurt. I was. The confession hung between us like smoke. Daniel figured it out. Eric continued, his eyes wet. After your accident, he connected the dots. He came to me, not as a cop, but as a brother. He could have arrested me, destroyed me. Instead, he made me promise to get out, to be better, to honor what you'd lost. That's when he saved me from the raid. He gave me a second chance I didn't deserve, and the condition was that I'd spend the rest of my life trying to be worth it. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make him feel even a fraction of what I'd felt lying in that hospital bed, learning I'd never walk again. You should have told me, I said, my voice hollow. That first night, you should have told me the truth. I know. You let me think. I choked on the words. You let me think someone actually saw me for me, that I was worth something beyond pity or charity. But it was always guilt, wasn't it? You were always just trying to fix your conscience.
No.
Eric moved closer, dropping to his knees in front of my wheelchair, so our eyes were level. Sharon, listen to me. What I feel for you has nothing to do with guilt. You're the first person in 3 years who's made me want to be better, not because I owe someone a debt, but because you deserve someone better. You deserve everything. I looked at him through my tears. This man who defended me, protected me, made me feel whole. And all of it was built on the foundation of the worst day of my life. Leave, I said quietly. Sharon. Leave my apartment. Leave my life. I don't want your protection or your guilt or your… My voice broke again. Just go. Eric stood slowly, his face a mask of devastation. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, setting it on the table beside the dying lilies. If staying away is what you need, he said, his voice thick with emotion, I'll do it. But if anyone ever hurts you again… His eyes met mine, and I saw something dark and absolute in them. They won't live to regret it. The words should have terrified me. Instead, they settled into my chest like a promise carved in stone, protection and threat all at once. Eric walked to the door, paused with his hand on the knob. Your brother was right about you, he said without turning around. You are the strongest person I've ever met. And I'm sorry that my weakness cost you everything. Then he was gone. I sat in the silence of my apartment, surrounded by wilting flowers and the wreckage of a truth I'd never asked for. The paper he'd left was a phone number, not his, but someone else's. A lawyer, maybe, or a contact for something I couldn't begin to understand. Outside, the black car pulled away from the curb. And for the first time since the accident, I was alone again. Completely alone. The way I thought I'd wanted to be. But as I wheeled to my bedroom, past the lilies that now looked more like a funeral arrangement than a gift, I realized something that made my chest ache. Being alone and being safe from heartbreak weren't the same thing. And I'd just chosen the lonelier of the two. For weeks passed, and the silence felt like drowning. I told myself I was better off. Safer. That cutting Eric Harvey out of my life was the right choice, the only choice. But every morning, I wheeled to my window and looked for the black car that was no longer there. Every night, I reached for my phone and stopped myself from calling the number I'd memorized, but never dialed. I missed him. God help me, I missed the man who destroyed my life before he ever knew my name. So, I did what any rational person would do when they couldn't stop thinking about someone. I researched him. Late at night, when the phantom pain in my legs kept sleep away, I dove into the digital underworld of Eric Harvey. Most of what I found was rumor, speculation, whispers dressed up as fact. But patterns emerged. The East District's ghost boss controlled everything from shipping ports to construction contracts. His organization moved money, merchandise, and, according to some sources, people. Violence followed him like a shadow. 3 rival gang members disappeared last year after encroaching on his territory. A city councilman who'd taken bribes from a competing syndicate was found beaten so badly he never returned to office. Eric Harvey was feared, respected, untouchable. But then I found the other thread. Anonymous donations to children's hospitals across the city. A youth center in the East District that offered free after-school programs, funded by an LLC that traced back to one of Eric's shell companies. And my breath caught when I found it. A substantial grant to Mercy General's Rehabilitation Center, the very place where I'd learned to live again after the accident. The donation had come 6 months after my crash. No name attached, just a foundation called Second Chances Initiative. He'd been trying to fix what he'd broken, even before he knew I existed. The realization didn't make me forgive him, but it made him more complicated than the monster I wanted him to be. On Tuesday evening, I stayed late at the clinic for an additional therapy session. Danielle had gone home, leaving me to finish stretches on my own. The building was quiet, most staff already gone for the night. I wheeled out the side entrance, heading toward the accessible parking where my modified van waited. The streetlights flickered, old bulbs the clinic kept meaning to replace, casting uneven shadows across the empty lot. That's when I saw him. A man mid-30s, with greasy hair and a stained jacket, leaning against my van like he owned it. He straightened when he saw me, a smile sliding across his face that made my skin crawl. "Well, look at this," he said, his voice slurred. Drunk or high, I couldn't tell. Pretty thing all alone. I stopped several feet away, my hand moving to my phone. "You need to move. That's my van. I ain't stopping you." He pushed off the vehicle, stumbling slightly. "But maybe we can talk first. You look like you could use some company. Someone to help you with whatever it is you need help with." His eyes traveled over me in a way that made my stomach turn.
Move. Now.
I kept my voice steady, but my heart was hammering. He laughed and started toward me. "What are you gonna do? Run away?" The cruelty of it, the casual way he weaponized my disability, froze me for a split second. But then instinct kicked in. I grabbed my phone, fingers fumbling for the emergency button. Before I could press it, headlights flooded the parking lot. The black car screeched to a stop between us. Doors flew open, and Marcus stepped out first, his massive frame blocking the stranger's path. Another man I didn't recognize emerged from the passenger side. And then Eric. He moved with terrifying purpose, his face a mask of cold fury I'd never seen before. This wasn't the gentle man who'd sat across from me at dinner or knelt by my wheelchair in my apartment. This was the ghost boss of the East District. The stranger's bravado evaporated. "Hey man, I didn't know." Eric grabbed him by the throat, slamming him against my van with enough force to dent the metal. "You didn't know what?" His voice was deadly quiet. "That this woman is under my protection? That touching her would be the last thing you ever did?" "Eric, stop." I heard myself shout, but he didn't seem to hear me. The stranger clawed at Eric's hand, gasping for air. Eric leaned in close, his words too low for me to hear, but I saw the man's eyes go wide with terror. Then Eric threw him to the ground. The stranger scrambled backward, and Marcus hauled him up by his collar. "Get him out of here," Eric ordered, his voice like gravel. "And make sure everyone knows what happens when someone threatens her." Marcus dragged the man toward the second car as he whimpered apologies that no one acknowledged. Eric turned to me, and the fury drained from his face, replaced by something raw and desperate. "Are you hurt? Did he touch you?" I stared at him, my heart pounding for entirely different reasons now. "What did you do?" "I protected you." "You almost killed him." "He deserved it." No hesitation. No remorse. "Eric," my voice shook. "That man, the violence, that's who you really are, isn't it?" Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe. Or recognition. Yes. The honesty was worse than any lie. "I sent you away," I said, tears burning my eyes. "I told you to leave me alone. So why were you here?" "Because I never stopped protecting you," Eric said quietly. "I gave you space like you asked, but I was never going to leave you unguarded. Not in this city. Not with people who know you're connected to me." "Connected to you," I repeated bitterly. "I'm not connected to you. I don't want." "You think I don't know that?" His voice rose, cracking with emotion. "You think I don't know I'm poison to you? But I can't." He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. "I can't let anything happen to you. Even if you hate me. Even if you never want to see me again. I can't." I looked at him. This man who'd saved me and destroyed me, who'd shown me gentleness and now violence. The contradiction was too much to hold. "You can't be both my protector and my danger," I whispered. The words landed between us like a verdict. Eric's face crumpled, just for a second, before he locked it down again. "I know." He turned to leave, but I wasn't finished. "That man who sat with me at dinner," I said, my voice breaking. "Who sent me flowers and made me laugh. Was he real? Or was he just another version of the ghost?" Eric stopped, his back to me. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. "He was the man I wish I could be. The man your brother believed I could become." He looked back over his shoulder, his eyes meeting mine. "But you're right. I'm dangerous, Sharon. And being near me will always put you at risk." "Then why are you still here?" "Because walking away from you," he said softly, "is the one thing I'm not strong enough to do." He got into his car, and this time, I watched it drive away. I sat alone in the parking lot, my hands shaking, my heart shattered into pieces I didn't know how to reassemble. Eric Harvey was a monster. And somehow, impossibly, I was falling in love with him anyway. He called 17 times in the first week. I know because I counted. Each time my phone buzzed with his name, I stared at the screen until it went dark again. Each voicemail notification felt like a weight added to my chest, and I deleted them all without listening. I was rebuilding my life. That's what I told myself as I threw myself into routine, therapy sessions, work volunteering at the children's ward, coffee with friends who asked careful questions I refused to answer. Normal. Safe. Mine. But every morning felt emptier than the last. The letters started on day 9. The first arrived in a plain envelope, my name written in strong, slanted handwriting. I left it on my kitchen counter for 2 days before throwing it away unopened. The second came 3 days later. I lasted 4 hours before it joined the first in the trash. By the third letter, I stopped pretending I had the strength to resist. "Sharon, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking you to read this. I just need you to know that meeting you changed something in me I didn't know could still change. You were right about everything. I am dangerous. I am the reason you suffer. And loving you is the most selfish thing I've ever done." Loving me. The words sat in my chest like stones. My friends started noticing. At coffee, Maya watched me push a scone around my plate without eating. "You look exhausted, Shar. Are you sleeping?" "Fine." I lied. "Is this about that guy? The one from the restaurant?" I told her a sanitized version. Left out the Mafia, the violence, the guilt that connected us like a scar. "I'm handling it." Maya's hand covered mine. "You don't have to handle everything alone, you know." But I did. Because how could I explain that the man I was trying to forget had saved me and destroyed me in equal measure? That his absence felt like losing a limb I'd only just learned I had? The messages came through mutual acquaintances next. Mrs. Chen knocked on my door with a casserole and an awkward expression. "A gentleman asked me to make sure you're eating. Tell him I'm fine." He also said to tell you that the car is still watching, even if you can't see it. My throat tightened. Tell him to stop. But I looked for the car anyway. And some part of me felt safer knowing it was there. The fourth letter arrived on a Thursday evening, slipped under my door, while I was at therapy. This one was different, a single page, the handwriting rushed, like he'd written it in one desperate breath. You were the first thing that made me wish I'd been a better man. That's all it said. 7 words that cracked something open inside me. I held the paper with trembling hands, reading it over and over until the words blurred. The first thing. Not Daniel's sacrifice, not his guilt, not his desire for redemption.
Me.
I made him wish he could be better. The tears came before I could stop them, weeks of anger and grief, and longing I'd been holding back finally breaking through. I cried until my chest ached, until I had nothing left. At my next therapy session, Danielle noticed immediately. Sharon, what's going on? Nothing. I'm fine. You're not fine. You've barely made progress in 3 weeks. Your focus is gone. She set down her clipboard, her expression softening. Talk to me. What's really happening? And somehow, I found myself telling her. Not everything, not the violence or the criminal empire, but enough. There's someone, I said quietly. Someone who saw me. Really saw me. Not the wheelchair, not the limitations. Just me. That's beautiful. But he's also the reason I'm in this chair. Danielle's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't interrupt. Not directly, but close enough. And I can't. My voice broke. I can't reconcile it, Danielle. How can I feel this way about someone who's part of the worst thing that ever happened to me? Can I ask you something? She leaned forward. What scares you more? Being with him, or losing him? The question landed like a punch. I don't know, I whispered. But that was a lie. I did know. What terrified me wasn't Eric's darkness or his violence, or even the danger he represented. What terrified me was how alive I felt when he looked at me. How, for the first time since the accident, I'd felt like a woman instead of a tragedy. How his absence had turned my carefully rebuilt life into something hollow. I think you do know, Danielle said gently. And I think that's what's really scaring you. That evening, I wheeled myself to my window as storm clouds gathered over the city. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then harder, drumming against the glass like a heartbeat. My reflection stared back at me, half illuminated by the lamp behind me, half shadowed by the darkness outside. Split down the middle. Light and dark. Safety and risk. The life I'd rebuilt and the life I'd barely begun to imagine. Eric Harvey was a monster. But he was also the man who'd sat across from me and made me laugh. Who'd defended me when a stranger tried to shame me. Who'd sent flowers and letters and protection I never asked for, but desperately needed. He was guilty. But so was I. I'd spent 3 years blaming myself for being on that road, for surviving when maybe I shouldn't have, for not being strong enough to build a life that felt worth living. I'd carried guilt that wasn't mine to carry, and in doing so, I'd forgotten how to be anything but broken. Eric saw past the brokenness. He saw Sharon, not the accident victim, not the woman in the wheelchair, just Sharon. And maybe that's what I couldn't forgive him for. Not the role his world played in destroying my legs, but the way he'd made me want to live again. Made me want him. The rain streaked down the window like tears. I pressed my palm against the glass, feeling the cold seep through. Maybe I can forgive both of us, I whispered to my reflection, to the storm, to the silence that had become unbearable. The words hung in the empty apartment, neither promise nor prayer, but something in between. Outside, lightning split the sky. And somewhere in the city, I knew Eric Harvey was reading the silence I'd created between us, wondering if it was permanent. Wondering if I'd ever let him close enough to explain that love didn't always come dressed in light. Sometimes it found you in the dark. Sometimes it wore tattoos and carried guilt and made you wish for impossible things. Sometimes it looked like a ghost who couldn't walk away. I picked up my phone, stared at his number for a long time, my thumb hovering over the call button. Not yet. I wasn't ready yet. But soon. Maybe soon. I set the phone down and watched the rain fall, watched my reflection split between shadow and light, and let myself feel the truth I'd been running from. I didn't want to forget Eric Harvey. I wanted to find a way to keep him. He was waiting for me when I came home.
Not in a car this time.
Not hidden or protected. Just standing in the rain outside my building, soaked through, hands in his pockets, looking like a man who'd run out of places to go. I stopped at the entrance, my hand frozen on the door handle. The rain fell in sheets between us, turning the streetlights into halos of gold. Eric's dark hair was plastered to his forehead, his shirt clinging to his frame. But he didn't move, didn't seek shelter, just waited. How long have you been out here? I called over the storm. Does it matter? His voice carried through the rain, rough and tired. You'll catch pneumonia. Then I'll catch pneumonia. I should have gone inside. Should have left him there to make whatever point he was trying to make. But my hands moved before my mind could stop them, wheeling forward into the rain. The water hit me instantly, cold, relentless, soaking through my jacket in seconds. I didn't care. What are you doing here, Eric? He stepped closer, and I saw it then. The exhaustion carved into his face, the shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights, the raw vulnerability he wasn't trying to hide anymore. I couldn't stay away, he said simply. I tried. God knows I tried. But every day without you felt like... He stopped, shook his head. It felt like dying slowly. You don't get to say things like that, I said, my voice breaking. You don't get to stand in the rain and make pretty speeches about missing me when you're the reason everything fell apart. I know. Do you? The anger I'd been holding back for weeks finally erupted. Do you know what it's like to finally feel whole again, only to discover it was all built on a lie? You hid behind your guilt, Eric. You made yourself my hero when you were really my villain. You're right. He didn't flinch, didn't defend himself. Every word. But I'm done hiding. What does that even mean? It means I'm leaving. His voice was steady, final. The syndicate, the empire, all of it. I've been dissolving it piece by piece for the last month. Selling off assets, cutting ties, paying people to walk away. Marcus is taking over what's left, the legitimate operations, the businesses that don't run on blood money. I stared at him, rain streaming down my face. Why? Because you were right about something else too. He took another step closer, close enough that I could see the water dripping from his eyelashes. I can't be both your protector and your danger. So I'm choosing. I'm choosing you. That's not fair, I whispered. You can't put that on me. I didn't ask you to. I'm not doing it for you, Sharon. His intensity cut through everything. I'm doing it because of you. Because you showed me what it feels like to want to be better instead of just pretending to be. You think I'm giving something up? I'm finally letting go of the things that were killing me. The rain fell harder, and I couldn't tell anymore where it ended and my tears began. You can't just erase who you were, I said, my voice barely audible over the storm. The violence, the fear you created, it doesn't disappear because you decide to walk away. I know. He crouched down, putting himself at eye level with me, rain pouring over both of us. I'll carry it forever. Every choice, every consequence. But Sharon, his hand reached out, hesitating just before touching my face. You make me want to carry it differently. Not as an excuse, but as a reminder of why I need to be better. My breath caught. You can't protect me from who you are. I know that too. His eyes held mine, dark, honest, stripped of every defense. But maybe you can remind me who I could still be. The words hung between us, fragile and fierce. Who's that? I asked, barely breathing. Someone worthy of the way you look at me. Someone who deserves the second chance you represent. Someone, his voice cracked. Someone your brother would be proud of. I reached up then, my hand cupping his jaw, feeling the roughness of stubble beneath my palm. Daniel would have liked that you're trying. But, Eric, I needed him to hear this. I'm not here because of my brother. I'm not here because of guilt or debt or redemption. I'm here because when you looked at me that first night, I felt alive for the first time in 3 years. Something broke in his expression, relief, hope, disbelief all at once. You're not my weakness, Sharon. He leaned into my touch, his eyes closing briefly. You're the only reason I still fight. The only thing worth fighting for. Then stop fighting, I whispered. And just be here. He opened his eyes, and what I saw there stole my breath. Everything he'd been holding back, everything he'd been too afraid to show. Love raw and desperate and real. He started, but I didn't let him finish. I pulled him to me, closing the distance between us, and kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was rain and tears and weeks of longing crashing together all at once. His hand came up to cradle my face, the other gripping my wheelchair like an anchor, and he kissed me back like I was the only solid thing in a world that had been falling apart. The rain washed over us, cold and cleansing, and somehow perfect, washing away the guilt, the anger, the fear, leaving only this, two broken people choosing each other anyway. When we finally pulled apart, both breathless, his forehead rested against mine. I don't need you to save me, I said softly. I need you to see me. That's all I've ever needed. I see you, Eric whispered, his thumb brushing away rainwater or tears from my cheek. You're the strongest, most beautiful person I've ever known. And if you'll let me, I'll spend the rest of my life proving I see you. Not the rest of your life, I said, a small smile breaking through. Let's start with tomorrow. And then the day after that. One day at a time. He laughed, a sound I'd never heard from him before, genuine and unguarded. One day at a time. I can do that. He stood slowly, his hand finding mine, fingers interlacing. Come on, let's get you out of this rain before we both drown. You're the one who is standing out here like a dramatic fool. For you, he said simply. I'd stand in the rain forever, if that's what it took. Marcus appeared then with an umbrella that was far too late to be useful, his expression carefully neutral as he took in the scene. Both of us soaked, holding hands, smiling like idiots. Home, sir, he asked. Eric looked at me, the question in his eyes. Home, I agreed. And as Marcus helped me into the car, Eric folding my wheelchair with the same careful attention he'd shown that first night, I realized something. This wasn't a rescue. This was a choice. Two people who'd survived the worst deciding to build something better together. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And maybe that was the only kind of love worth having. He disappeared the next morning. I woke to find a note on my kitchen table, written in his familiar slanted handwriting. I have to finish this. Trust me.
E.
That was 3 weeks ago. At first, I told myself it was fine. He'd said he was dissolving the syndicate. Of course, that would take time. But as days turned into weeks with no word, no calls, no midnight visits in the rain, the silence began to feel like abandonment all over again. The city noticed his absence too. At the coffee shop, I overheard conversations. Harvey's empire is collapsing. Word is he's been bleeding assets for weeks. Rivera's crew is moving into the East District. No one stopping them. Each rumor felt like a knife twisting deeper. But then I noticed them, the men I didn't recognize. One always stationed near my building. Another following at a discreet distance when I went to therapy. They never approached, never spoke, but their presence was unmistakable. Eric was gone, but his protection remained. Marcus appeared on day 16. I was leaving the clinic when he materialized beside me, opening an umbrella as light rain began to fall. Ms. Mitchell, he said with his usual respectful nod. Marcus. Relief flooded through me. Where is he? Is he? He's alive. Marcus's expression was carefully neutral. But he's finishing what he started. It's complicated. Is he safe? Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. Mr. Harvey is handling business that should have been handled years ago. There are consequences to walking away from the life he led. Not everyone is happy to see him go. My stomach dropped. What kind of consequences? The kind he won't let touch you, Marcus said firmly. I'm here to tell you he's thinking of you. Every day. And when this is over, he paused. When this is over, he's coming home. Home, I repeated softly. To you, Ms. Mitchell. He's coming home to you. Eric returned on a Tuesday night, 23 days after he'd left. I was reading in bed when I heard the knock. Soft, hesitant, so unlike him. I knew it was Eric before I even reached the door. When I opened it, my breath caught. He looked like he'd been through a war. A bruise darkened his left cheekbone. A cut above his eyebrow had been stitched recently, and he moved with the careful stiffness of someone nursing cracked ribs. But his eyes, those dark eyes that had first seen me across a restaurant, were clear.
Free.
"Hi," he said, his voice rough. "Oh my God." I wheeled back to let him in, my heart hammering. "Eric, what happened? Are you?" "I'm out." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "It's done. I'm out." "What do you mean out?" He lowered himself carefully onto my couch, wincing slightly. "I mean I don't own anything anymore. No businesses, no territory, no leverage. I liquidated everything, sold it, signed it over, burned the bridges I needed to burn. Some people weren't happy about it. They made their displeasure known." He gestured vaguely to his injuries. "But I'm alive. And I'm free." I wheeled closer, my hand reaching out to touch his face, avoiding the bruise. "You could have been killed." "I know." He leaned into my touch. "But staying in that world would have killed me slower. And I promised you I'd be better." "Eric, there's something else." He pulled an envelope from his jacket, handing it to me. "Open it." My hands trembled as I unfolded the papers inside. Legal documents.
Deeds.
Financial statements. It took me several minutes to understand what I was looking at. "You sold everything," I whispered, scanning the pages. "All of it. The restaurants, the properties, my voice broke." "You put it all into rehabilitation centers?" 3 new facilities across the city, Eric confirmed. Fully funded for the next 20 years. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, counseling, adaptive equipment, everything someone needs to rebuild their life after a spinal injury. They'll operate under the Mitchell Foundation. Your name, Sharon. Your legacy. Tears blurred my vision. "Why would you?" "Because I can't give you back what was taken." His voice was thick with emotion. "I can't undo the accident or erase the pain you've lived with. But I can make sure other people like you have every resource, every chance, every bit of support you deserved and didn't get. It's not redemption, Sharon. It's retribution. Quiet retribution for what the world took from you." I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. The magnitude of what he'd done, the empire he destroyed, the life he dismantled, all of it redirected into something that would help people like me, was too much to comprehend. "You gave up everything." I finally managed. "I gave up nothing that mattered." He reached for my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "Everything that matters is sitting right here. Eric." I squeezed his hand, tears streaming freely now. "You didn't save me." His expression shifted, confused, maybe hurt. "You showed me I was never broken." I continued, my voice steady despite the tears. "You looked at me and saw a whole person. Not a tragedy, not a victim, not someone who needed fixing.
Just me."
That's what changed everything. Not your guilt, not your money, not your protection. You saw me, and you made me see myself again. Something in his face crumpled. Relief and love and exhaustion all colliding. "I love you," he said, the words raw and honest. "I don't know when it happened or how, but I love you. Not because I owe your brother. Not because I feel guilty. I love you because you're the strongest, most beautiful person I've ever known. Because you make me want to be better. Because when I think about my future, you're the only thing I see. I love you too." The words came easily, naturally. "I'm terrified of it. But I love you." He pulled me closer, careful of his injuries, until his forehead rested against mine. "We're a mess, aren't we?" I laughed through my tears. The absolute worst. 2 broken people choosing each other. "We're not broken," I corrected softly. "We're survivors. And survivors know how to build something from the ruins." He kissed me then, gentle, reverent, full of promise. Not a man claiming his prize, but an equal meeting his match. When we pulled apart, His eyes held mine. "One day at a time?" he asked. "One day at a time," I agreed. Later, after I'd cleaned his wounds and convinced him to stay the night, we lay together in my bed, him on top of the covers, fully clothed despite my protests, me beside him, my hand in his. "What happens now?" I asked into the darkness.
Now.
His thumb stroked my knuckles. "Now I figure out who Eric Harvey is when he's not the ghost boss of the East District. Now I learn how to be a man worthy of Sharon Mitchell. Now I wake up every morning and choose you all over again." "That sounds exhausting." He laughed softly. "Probably. But I've done harder things." "Like what?" "Like walking away from you that first time." He turned his head to look at me, his eyes serious. "I'm never doing that again. Whatever happens, whatever we face, I'm not walking away. Not from you. Not from us. Promise. Promise." Outside, rain began to fall again. Softer this time, gentler. The sound filled the quiet between us, a reminder of the night everything changed. I'd spent 3 years believing I was broken. That the accident had stolen not just my ability to walk, but my ability to be loved, to be seen, to be whole. Eric Harvey hadn't fixed me. He'd simply refused to believe I was ever broken in the first place. And maybe that was the only kind of love that mattered, the kind that saw you completely and chose you anyway. Not because you needed saving, but because you were worth choosing. "Eric," I whispered. "Yeah. Welcome home." His hand tightened around mine. "I'm already there." 6 months later, Eric asked me to dinner. "Wear something nice," he'd said that morning, kissing my forehead before leaving for his meeting with the Mitchell Foundation board. He'd taken a position as a consultant, unpaid, he insisted, though they'd offered, helping establish policies and community outreach programs. Watching him pour himself into legitimate work, into building instead of destroying, still made my chest ache in the best way. "Where are we going?" I'd asked. He'd smiled, that slow, genuine smile I'd grown to love. "You'll see." The car pulled up to a familiar street corner, and my breath caught. Bellissimo, the restaurant where everything had started, where Ryan had walked away, where Eric had first seen me. Except it wasn't Bellissimo anymore. The sign above the entrance glowed softly in the early evening light. "Aurora." "Eric," I whispered as Marcus opened my door. "What did you do?" "I bought it," he said simply, appearing beside me. The owner was retiring. I couldn't let it close. Too many memories. So I convinced him to sell, and I've spent the last 4 months renovating it. Same chef, same menu, but a new beginning. He helped me into my wheelchair, his movements practiced and gentle.
Aurora.
"It means dawn." Seemed appropriate. My throat tightened. "You bought an entire restaurant?" "I bought our restaurant." He wheeled me toward the entrance. The place where my life actually started. Inside, the restaurant had been transformed. The heavy drapes were gone, replaced with windows that let in natural light. The dark wood paneling had been painted a warm cream. But the bones remained the same tables, the same soft music, the same intimate atmosphere. And there, in the corner where Eric had sat that first night, was a table set for 2. Candles flickered. A single white lily rested in a small vase. And beside the table stood the same waiter who'd served us. Older, smiling, his eyes crinkling with recognition. "Ms. Mitchell," he said with a small bow. "Welcome back. It is good to see you happy this time." "Thank you, Antonio." I managed, my voice thick. Eric wheeled me to the table, and this time, when he sat across from me, I noticed everything that had changed. No gold chain at his throat. No tattoos visible beneath his rolled shirt sleeves. He'd never hidden them from me. But tonight, he wore a simple navy shirt, open at the collar. No guards at the door. No tension in his shoulders. Just Eric.
Just the man I loved.
"You're staring," he said, a smile playing at his lips. "You look different. Different good or different bad?" "Different peaceful," I said softly. "Like you finally stopped running." His hand reached across the table, finding mine. "That's because I did. I found where I was supposed to be." Antonio appeared with 2 plates of pasta, The same dish I'd ordered that terrible first night with Ryan. The same meal I'd been too devastated to eat. My eyes met Eric's, questioning. I wanted to rewrite the memory, he explained. This time no tears. This time just us. I laughed, surprised by the gesture. You remembered what I ordered. Sharon. His thumb stroked my knuckles. I remember everything about that night. The way your dress caught the candlelight. How you tried so hard not to cry. The exact moment I decided I couldn't walk away from you.
He paused.
I remember thinking, there's the strongest person in this room, and everyone's too blind to see it. Eric. He stood then, moving around the table, and I realized what he was about to do. My heart hammered as he knelt beside my wheelchair, his eyes level with mine, his hand still holding mine. This time, no one walks away, he said quietly, his voice steady, but full of emotion. Not you.
Not me.
Not ever. From his pocket, he pulled a small black box. The world stopped. I'm not asking you to marry me, Eric said quickly, seeing my expression. Not yet. When I do, it'll be perfect, planned, romantic, everything you deserve. This. He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a compass. This is a promise that no matter where life takes us, no matter what storms we face, I'll always find my way back to you. You're my true north, Sharon. My home. My second chance at being human. Tears blurred my vision as he clasped the bracelet around my wrist. The metal was warm from being in his pocket, and the compass charm caught the candlelight. It's beautiful, I whispered. Not as beautiful as you. He kissed my hand, then my forehead, before returning to his seat. Now eat. Antonio will be offended if we let his pasta get cold. We ate, and this time, the food tasted the way it should, rich and comforting and perfect. We talked about everything and nothing. The Foundation's upcoming gala. My promotion to lead volunteer coordinator at the Children's Hospital. His therapy sessions, yes, therapy, because he'd finally admitted that carrying 3 decades of violence required professional help to unpack. We talked about the future, like it was something we owned together. Between us, the candle flickered. The music swelled. And for the first time since the accident, I felt completely, entirely whole. Not because Eric had fixed me, but because he'd never believed I needed fixing in the first place. As Antonio cleared our plates and promised tiramisu was coming, I watched Eric across the table. His face relaxed in the candlelight, a slight smile playing at his lips as he listened to me talk about a patient's breakthrough in physical therapy. This man who'd once been the ghost boss of the East District now lit up hearing about a 7-year-old learning to use her prosthetic leg. What? He asked, catching me staring again. I'm just thinking, I said. About how the world once told me I was broken. I touched the compass at my wrist. After the accident, everyone looked at me with pity. They saw the wheelchair first, the woman second. They saw limitations, tragedy, someone who needed saving. For 3 years, I believed them. I thought I was broken beyond repair. Eric's expression softened, and he reached for my hand again. But love, real love, doesn't fix you. I continued, my voice steady. It doesn't erase your scars or pretend they don't exist. It sits beside them and says, you're enough, exactly as you are. Not in spite of what you've survived, but because of it. Sharon, his voice cracked. You didn't save me, Eric. You didn't rescue me or fix me or complete me. You just saw me. And that made all the difference. He lifted my hand to his lips, kissing my knuckles. You did the same for me. You saw past the monster and found whatever humanity I had left. You made me believe I could be better, that I wanted to be better. We saved each other then. No, he said softly. We chose each other. There's a difference. Antonio returned with 2 perfect servings of tiramisu, setting them down with a flourish. For love, he said in his thick accent. The kind that survives storms. As we ate dessert, sharing bites and stories, I caught our reflection in Eric's wine glass, our hands intertwined on the white tablecloth, the candlelight making everything soft and golden. Behind us, the large windows showed the city beyond, and I noticed rain had begun to fall, gentle drops streaking the glass. But inside Aurora, we were warm, safe, together. The rain couldn't touch us here. Thank you, I said suddenly. For what? For not looking away. I squeezed his hand. That first night, everyone else in this restaurant saw my humiliation and turned away. But you looked. You saw me. And you stayed. Eric's eyes held mine, dark, warm, full of everything we'd survived together. I'll always stay, Sharon. That's the easiest promise I'll ever make. Outside, lightning flickered across the sky, but the thunder that followed was distant, fading. The storm was passing, the way all storms eventually do. And in its wake, there was only light, breaking through the rain-streaked windows, reflecting in wine glasses and candlelight, illuminating two people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to build something beautiful from the ruins. This time, no one walked away. This time, we were home.